Alright, so this video will focus on simplifying square roots. And to simplify square roots, we have to understand two things. Number one, if I have, let's say, square root 4 times square root 4, we know the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of 4 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. Let's try one more. The square root of 16 times the square root of 16, we know that the square root of 16 is 4, right? And the square root of 16 is 4 again, and 4 times 4 is 16. This principle of what I'm showing you is if you take a square root and multiply it by itself, you will get the number that's inside of the square root without the square root sign. So, I mean, this is always the case. So if I did like the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, that would equal 5. The reason why I'm showing you that is because that will play directly into simplifying square roots. So let's now look at that. So we're going to use a concept that we've learned before, and that was the factor ladder. So I'm going to go through here and go square root of 45. And what I want to do is I want to think of primes. All right, so I know that the square root of 5 times the square root of 9 would equal 45, square root of 45, right? So then what can I take out of the square root of 9? Well, I can do two things, square root of 3, and I have square root of 3, and I'm left with the square root of 3, and I'm left with a 1. Now if I look at these things and I look and see if there's any that are repeated, meaning the same, right? Well, there's these two here. And what I can do is I know that the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 equals 3 from what I just talked about before. So my answer to this in lowest terms would be 3 square root 5. And let's plug that in and see if it works. So 3 square root 5. Sure enough, that works. Let's try another one. So I'll go through here and go new, and I'll put down square root of 12. I'll do the same thing I did before, where I do this factor ladder. The first thing I'm going to pull out is square root of 3, right? And then I'm left with square root of 4. And from there I can pull out a square root of 2, and a square root of 2, and 1. Now you're going to start to see a pattern here, that the square root of 4 really is just 2, right? I mean, I know that. I'm pulling it out this way just so I can show you that when I take these two and I multiply them together, like the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 equals 2. And then I'm left with this thing here. So my answer is 2 square root 3. So let's write that in there. Let's just try one last one. Well, this is an easy one. That's just 5. Oh, actually, no, it's not. I'm sorry. So let's do, I thought it was a cube. So let's do square root of 125. So I know that the first thing I can pull out of this would be a square root of 5. And then I'm left with a square root of 25. Now, just to make my point that I was saying before, I know the square root of 25 is just 5, right? So my answer is 5 square root 5. I could do it the same way I did it before, though, where I did square root of 5, then I have square root of 5 down here, square root of 5 down here, and 1. And I know that two of these, square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is just 5. And then I have this last square root of 5 left over. So my answer is 5 square root 5. Now you might be wondering, how do you get back to this number again? And all that you do is you take this number and square it. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then 25 times 5 is 125. And that's how I go from this number back to square root of 125. It's not asking you to do that right now, but in the future it will. So I want to make sure you understand how we did that.